If you haven't been to one of these before, hello, hi, I'm Rachel. I'm a vocal feminization coach, and I've been teaching voice feminization classes for around about the last 3 years, both independently over on transvoice.com and as part of Seattle Voice Lab. I absolutely love what I do, and I'm really happy to be here today with another workshop. So the plan today is to start to put what we've learned in the first 3 lectures in action. So in our first lecture, we talked all about some of the basics around voice, about how the voice works and functions. In our second one, we talked all about resonance. And in our third, we brought it all together and had a big old recap. So if you plan to join us up on stage, it's a great idea going forwards to listen back to those 3 lectures, and they should help you out to be able to understand the verbiage and the vocabulary that we're using. So before I go any further as well, I want to give a really big shout out and thanks to Snowy, whose donation helped to make this possible. So if I can get a big old round of applause for Snowy and all of our premium members here at the Academy. Thank you so much.
Snowy.
Really, really awesome. Thank you so much. What you do made this possible. So awesome. Great. So a few little words here before we go on. I want to talk to you all about safety and just some general house rules as well. While we go through the session today, I'd very much appreciate it if we could keep conversations in amongst the crowd to a minimum. If you do fancy having a question, please do raise your hand. I'm always happy to help to listen to questions, and there'll be a few different Q&A parts throughout the lecture today. You might be able to voice anything. So write it down, and we'll come to you at the end or halfway through. If you would like to have a bit of a chat, if you could please feel free to vacate the stage and to explore the rest of the Academy and come back when you're ready. That would be absolutely fantastic, just so everybody can hear what's going on stage and how we can move forward together. So outside of that, I want to talk to you all a little bit about safety and some different things that we'll be looking out for here, and some things that are a bit of a concern whenever we're working with voice. So throughout your practice, throughout the session, nothing that you do should hurt. If you find that you've got any sort of pain, if it's sudden or if it's slow, if you find that you've got any sort of discomfort, please do stop what you're doing and let either myself or another voice professional know. There is the saying of no pain, no gain. This definitely doesn't apply to voice work. Even if our voices started, right the way down here when mine started, at no point was there any pain to be able to get to where I am today. And the same will be true for you. This is a marathon, not a sprint as well. You may find that over some of the exercises that we do today, I give people certain goals or certain pitches to hit or certain sounds to make. Everybody is different. Even if we start with a really low voice and we need to get it right the way up there, we've got a long way to go. It's steadily that we need to do it. Some of these exercises may not be appropriate for you, so please do bear that in mind and go at your own pace. Throughout these exercises and demonstrations today, there should be no squeezing as well. We don't want to force anything when we're working with trans voice. We want to just gently move ourselves into the right position and stay there if we can. If you find that when we're working with voice, you have any sort of unintended change to how it feels or how it sounds, again, please do stop what you're doing and let us know. So things that could be on here include your voice suddenly becoming really shaky. If you feel as you can't get as quiet or as loud as you used to be able to go. If you can't get quite as high or as low, or if all of a sudden you find that you can't help creaking or getting really hoarse, like we've been to a big concert. None of these things should be happening. Again, do stop what you're doing and let us know. I haven't had anybody have any of these problems yet, touch wood, but I don't want anybody here to be the first, is the idea. So moving on from that, there are a few different things that are going to really help you with working on trans voice. One of them, number one, is staying hydrated. Hydration is really, really key. Our vocal folds, they love to be hydrated so that they can regulate how firm they are and also the amount of mucus that protects them and goes over them to stop them from getting irritated. You will find that your voice works for you much better when you're well hydrated. And these are one of the last tissues in our body to get hydrated, so it's a good idea to get yourself a big old glass of water about an hour before a session or before training. It will really, really help. For those of us that are on spironolactone as well, for an anti-androgen, then you'll know that water is a big thing. It can cause you to shed a lot of your water. It's important, especially important, to keep up the fluids in that front. Some general things to avoid: smoking, too much caffeine, alcohol. All these different things can irritate the vocal folds and make our job just a little bit more tricky. If you find that you are one of these people that has quite a few cups of coffee to get through the day, might be a good idea to go decaf while you start to work on voice if you come up against a bit of a wall and you can't move much further. So with that being said, has anybody got any questions on vocal safety or anything like that before we get on? No.
Question.
Yeah, go for it. Hi.
I was talking to someone about it, and they said a spoonful of honey. Is that true? That helps like relax the vocal cords?
Yeah,
Maybe
for
that just
sure. So,
slide down.
totally. So one thing that can really help us here is a singer's favorite. A honey and lemon tea can be fantastic for helping you to get your voice to where it wants to be. The tea physically warms up the tissues. It helps them be much more pliable and flexible. Just like any other muscle, it's going to behave better when it's warmed up. So a nice cup of tea can be fantastic. Honey and lemon especially can help to soothe that out and make the voice feel a little bit easier to use. So great shout as well. Warm drinks are fantastic. Honey and lemon especially is a bit of a singer's favorite. So excellent. Cool. Okay. So today we're going to have 3 to 4 different volunteers. After each volunteer, I'm going to have a little bit of a debrief and a bit of a chat about the different things that we've worked on together. Throughout this, I want you all to be thinking about voice in terms of vocal pitch, how high or how low we are, in terms of resonance, which is how dark or how bright the voice is, which is all about the space within the vocal tract, and in terms of vocal weight, how hard or how soft the voice is. So if we take a voice from my default, for example, with it being right way down here, if I first raise up the pitch to a decent level, still sounds really masked, so I'm gonna soften out the voice, reduce that vocal weight, then we're gonna bring the resonance up, make that space smaller, and all of a sudden, we have a fantastic voice that we can work with, and that's gonna be the goal today, is to try and work on each individual's problems and see how we can get that next step forwards. You will all have different challenges. Everyone's going to be at a different stage with voice work. And again, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Try not to compare yourself to anybody else, but see if there's something that you can take away from this here. As we go through this as well, everyone will be in different, broader categories of stages of where they are with their voice feminization. Some of you might be just brand new to this world. Can I get a bit of a wave for anybody who's like brand new to voice training? Yeah, there's a couple. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And how many of you have been working on your voice for a little while? Yeah, a few movements. Awesome, cool. So I like to think of voice training as having a few different stages. The first stage is where we get to know the verbiage and we get to understand what's happening with our voice. And we start to pull these different controls apart. Can we change our resonance while our pitch stays the same? Can we control our weight while we're doing that? And trying to get each of these different settings separate. That's our first stage. The second stage is all about finding the beginnings of a sound. And this is what we might be focusing on quite a bit today, is reading something like the Rainbow Passage that we've got up on the screen here, and slowly going through it, paying careful attention to the tone of the voice and where we can get this voice sounding more feminine. The third and final stage is all about habituation and getting this voice to be second nature. So this includes problems like I use my voice, but whenever I see friends that knew me before transition, the voice all of a sudden drops down without me. I can't control it. Or maybe whenever I'm nervous, I tend to find that it's harder to use my voice. So they'll each be in these different categories today. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive on in with our first volunteer. I'm going to put 10 minutes on the clock for each volunteer, and we're going to try and get through as much as we can. But once that time goes, I'm afraid that's going to be it. So let's go ahead and dive on in. Looking at my list of volunteers here, I have, let's see, is Anna Starfire here? First up, Anna Starfire.
Oh my goodness, that's me.
Wow, come on up.
I actually got
Can I get a big round of applause for Anna?
Yay!
Oh
my gosh, I actually actually here. Wow,
you did.
Oh my gosh,
Great to have you on the stage.
I'm a little bit.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
a little bit. I'm a little bit deaf in one ear today. There's just a lot of stuff clogging my ear on this side today, so
Yeah.
it might be a little bit difficult to figure out voice stuff today, but I'll try my best.
No worries. We'll muddle on through. I'm sure we'll find something cool. I'm going to start the clock just now. And that's 10 minutes on the clock. Perfect. So, Anna, can you tell me a little bit about your journey with vocal feminization so far? And can you give me a little bit of a demo of perhaps where you were and where you are at the minute?
Sure. I've been voice training off and on for quite a few months now. Just kind of voice training with different tutorials and whatnot. I I have Elle's voice training little Reddit post saved in my bookmarks, so I constantly refer back to that, and it goes into like pitch and resonance and all the things that you talk about here. But
Perfect.
your classes have been really helpful for
Oh, I'm so glad to hear
really
that.
solidifying a lot more of the concepts, especially stuff like differentiating pitch and resonance. Now I always go over
Mm.
like pitch is like the musical. I differentiate it by like musical, and then resonance is more of like the I don't know, like you
Yeah.
can keep the same note with resonance, but that's not so much with pitch. With pitch, it's like
Awesome.
it does change quite a lot. So
Mhm.
I'm told by a lot of friends that I am uh, like my voice is really pretty and I'm like really far along, and I don't know. I
Yeah, yeah.
I guess the off and on has been really helpful.
Good. I'm honestly so, so glad to hear that these sessions have helped. Like that's, oh, it's so good. I'm really, really pleased to hear that.
Yeah.
Good. So, with what you've been working on, it sounds like you've got some fantastic different elements in your voice already. I can hear some really, really great things. I can hear that your inflection's really lovely and bouncy. You're moving around quite a bit in your voice. And I think that the tone is definitely brighter and softer than I think it would have been previous to any sort of vocal training. So, I can tell that you're doing some
Right.
great things. I think, yeah, and there it is, like that. Right. That was so good. I feel
Right.
as though at the minute, Anna, that
Thank
you're
you.
in this kind of like the second stage going into the third stage. Currently, what I hear is that you've got some great behaviors. I just want to see more of them. I think sometimes we can kind of get into a pitch around about here and get like a little bit locked in, a little bit stuck, and then we go out again.
Yeah.
So I think just like a
Exactly.
general raising up, absolutely, is where we need to go. But as for like the basics and the main things, you've got that really damn well. So today what we're going to try and do
Excellent.
is have a little bit of a look at talking monotone for a little while, seeing if we can maintain that a little bit higher. And we're going to start to fight against this feeling of vocal gravity. I don't know if anyone in the crowd has felt this, but whenever you're talking and it feels like we're just kind of going back down further and further, and oh my God. And then we need to go back up. That's what I think is the main thing on your menu today. So
Right.
what I want to do first of all is just make sure that you can make this pitch nice and comfy. I've got a feeling that you can. I'm going to ask you to make this pitch with a nice old sound. It's going to be right about here. When you're ready, can you give me a on there, please? Really, really close. Can you bring it down just a little? Have a listen. Right about there. A little lower. Almost. Keep on coming down. Just a little lower. Can you hear me? There we are. That's perfect. Good. So make sure that you've got that pitch nice in your head. Can you count from 1 to 5? I'll go first. I'd like you to copy after me. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When you're ready, give that a go, please.
1. Oh, my voice just cracked.
Aha, no worries. It happens. Give it another go.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Now that's
How's that?
sounding gorgeous. That sounds absolutely great. It sounds really good.
Thank
This is
you.
the thing is that you're at the stage in your voice journey now where I start to see this kind of gold dust appearing, where you're going to be training using your voice, and every now and again there's going to be a phrase that's just like, ooh, I really love that. That's where I think you should be focusing. You know where you want to go, you know how to get there, but it's a case of finding these lovely little bits of gold dust and keeping hold of them and getting more of them in. We're going to go back to that note. I'm going to do a little bit of reading here today. This is the rainbow passage on the screen, everyone, and it contains a bunch of different sounds that we use in English. It's really nice and comprehensive. It's kind of like the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog of English. But without further ado, let's go from the start of when the sunlight strikes, just those first 4 words, please. And that pitch again is right here. I'll go first. When the sunlight strikes. When you're ready, please.
All right. When the sunlight strikes.
Beautiful. Let's keep on going. Raindrops in the air.
Raindrops in the air.
Good. The voice is getting a little bit weaker, and the pitch is
It
wanting to
is.
climb up. Try and get a little louder for me. Great. You
Yes.
continue on for me. They act as a prism. A little louder.
They act as a prism.
Beautiful. And form a rainbow. Start to project a little bit for me. Imagine you're in a busy coffee shop. And cappuccino, please. Can you give me a... And form a rainbow, please. A little louder.
Ooh, okay. Gotcha. And form a rainbow.
Beautiful. I just wanted to make sure that you could, because we had this tendency to go a little too soft, but you brought it right back in and you're able to project just fine. Great work. Let's keep going. The rainbow is a division of white light into many beautiful colors. Getting a little faster now. When you're ready, give it a go.
The rainbow is a division of white light into many beautiful colors.
Beautiful. Now you've got that baseline. We're going to try and take some baby steps around it. Be careful with the pitch falling off at the end of phrases. It's when it's most likely to happen. Here we go. These take the shape of a long round... Oh, I was meant to mix up the pitch. Hang on, let's try again. These take the shape of a long round arch. Try that bit for me, please.
Gotcha. Some inflection, I see.
Absolutely. Good.
These take the shape of a long round arch.
Beautiful work. That's sounding great. With its path high above, try and go a little higher on high and above. With its path high above, when you're ready, give it a go.
High above, okay. With its path high above.
Good. Let's see if we can get that even higher. High above, when you're ready.
High. With its
Beautiful,
path high above.
Good.
Ooh,
Almost.
that felt
And once
good.
more. Good. And one more try. With its path high above.
With its path high above.
Beautiful. And keep on going to the end of the phrase. And its two ends apparently beyond the horizon.
And its two ends apparently beyond the horizon.
Beautiful work. One thing I really love that you did there at the end of the horizon is, did everybody hear how Anna just suddenly started to horizon, like fry out at the bottom there? Beautiful work. Absolutely. Cool. Okay. So we've got around about 2 minutes on the clock, and I'm really, really impressed with what I'm hearing. So I wanted to take this time to give you some advice as to where you can go and the things to go forwards with. You have a fantastic tone. Your weight is sounding great. The resonance is sounding great. The main thing that I heard was just consistency. When we were chatting before, when you came up on stage, I know nerves have a huge part to play with this as well.
Right.
But when you were chatting to me before, you're a little less consistent. What I found is that as we started to chat, we kind of got locked into this buzzier, a little darker, a little thicker, kind of lower voice. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
But when you reset and when you're very intentional, you nail it. So for you, going forward, there's going to be a few different tools that will help. Using your voice is the main thing. So you're in a great place here at VR Chat. It's fantastic. It's the best place to do it. I used VR Chat extensively in my own vocal transition, and it helps so much. So I would advise you to have a chat with people, but every now and again, keep a recording going in the background. And I would like you, just when there's a lull in the conversation, to mute your mic, to go back to that recording and hit a random spot in that recording. Listen to that spot and think, is that consistent? Is that where I want it to be? There'll be one thing that we can change. If it's resonance or pitch, I think most likely for you, it's going to be pitch. When the pitch drops, everything else seems to fall apart a little bit. When you get that pitch right, it's just like, poof, everything locks into place.
Right.
So,
I feel that way too.
Record yourself. Yeah, good. Awesome. Record yourself, listen back, and fix the problems as they come up. That process of seeing a problem, evaluating it, and fixing it helps to teach our brain to be able to do it more consistently. Another thing that's going to really help as well is if you're on desktop, if you have a pitch tracker on your screen, you can see when you're wandering too low. And you can also hear yourself live. And that's us at time. Thank you so much indeed. Can I get a huge round of applause, please, for Anna? That was
Thank you so
awesome.
much,
Really, really strong start. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Killed
so
it. You're so welcome.
You did so good.
So, yeah, you absolutely killed it, Anna. Great job. So some of the main things there, I'm really glad that Anna was our first volunteer up here today, because I think Anna really strongly showed that staging effect. We were able to get the voice fantastic. I mean, the voice sounded, I don't know about you, but I thought it sounded absolutely great when we started reading up at a higher pitch. And really, I think it's all about just maintaining it, getting it more cohesive, and having it be more second nature. Some other little things that can help with this, if you're in a more advanced stage yourself. Listening and checking in with yourself is one thing, as we discussed. Another thing, visualization of what you're doing, so you get a little cue when you're dropping too low. Another thing, having a mantra phrase, going back to something, practicing something over and over again, so that if ever you're feeling a little bit unsure with your voice, you can go, hello, 1, 2, 3, whatever your phrase might be, and find yourself back in where you want to be with your voice. It's all about maintenance and consistency. Some further tips that could help here as well. Focusing on the breath even when we aren't speaking. A big part of these lectures over the last couple of weeks has been talking about how the breath informs the voice. If I have a really nice and bright feminine whisper, as opposed to like a really big, dark and masculine whisper, then if I have a feminine whisper and I talk through it, the voice will sound more feminine. If I have a masc whisper and I talk through it, the voice will sound more masc. This is all to do with resonance, all to do with the positioning of our tongue, of our larynx, and of our lips to make that space small as possible while keeping comfy and relaxed. A really good tip can be to monitor your breath throughout the day, so that whenever you sigh, or just breathe generally, pay attention to what that sound is sounding like. Is it nice and bright and femme? Or is it relaxed and more in this max space? In time, if you keep up with monitoring the breath, your larynx will stay up in position passively. This is how it is with myself as well. I use this voice in my sleep, I've been told, and this is part of my second nature now. For me to go back to my old voice with a darker resonance, I've got to really be intentional. So reset often, listen to yourself, visualize the data, keep on speaking, and focus on the breath as well. And that's going to get you there, Anna. But you're on the home stretch. Keep it up and you'll get there, no problem. Really, really, really good work.
Thank you.
I noticed a few questions here as well. Mario, hi. I saw you with your hand up just before. Did you have any
Hi.
questions on that one there?
Yeah, I have a few questions. Sorry, as you can tell, I'm really new to voice training, and I noticed, not only with me but with other people too, that volume of the voice, when the volume goes up, the frequency goes down. Is it normal at the beginning, or?
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. So the question again there was, as a beginner, noticing when the volume goes up, the pitch goes down, and is that normal? And I would say 100%. Beginners present their own unique problems and challenges. We all have our own unique problems, but a big part of it is being able to change one variable and keep all the other ones the same. So absolutely. One exercise that can really help with that is something called a Mesavoci exercise, which is me butchering Italian. It's all about placement of the voice. This exercise, we choose a note, we start off really quiet, we get louder, then we get quiet again, while keeping the pitch the same. We can use a pitch tracker or something to that effect to be able to make sure that we are staying nice and level, but your ears are going to be the best bet. So what I would do is I would choose a note within my comfortable range. I'm going to choose a B3, no, a G3. I'd start out really quiet on an R sound and I'd steadily get louder. Don't worry too much about gender and how that sounds in this exercise, but by transitioning from a very quiet voice, steadily getting louder, not that we're yelling, but just a little bit louder, and then gradually getting softer, that can help you to start to pull apart that conflation of pitch and volume, and I hope that helps. Any other questions specifically related to Anna or how that relates? Thank you so much for your question, though. Any other questions? May, was that a question, just to check? Nope, no worries. Cool. So we'll move on over to our next volunteer. And on the list here, I have VV Scoop. Is VV Scoop here at all?
Yeah, I am here.
You have a VV Scoop in the house. Hello, hi, welcome. Can I get a big old round of applause for VV here? Hi. Hi, welcome on stage. Let me just go ahead and take my timer here. Alrighty, and the time begins now. So can you tell me a little bit, please, Vivi, about what you've been up to and what sort of challenges you feel you've been facing currently with voice?
All right. Been training for a couple of years. Started with the swallow exercise and focusing on larynx stuff. And been talking a lot in VR chat. Gotten really comfortable, I feel.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff is like unconscious, so I might have blind spots. I haven't really trained that rigorously, but yeah, I would like to go towards more feminine cis voice, wherever that may be.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's me.
Beautiful. Absolutely. Thank you so much. So, listening to you there again, some great work that you've done. That laugh, especially, that is beautiful. Really well done. One of the things that I'm hearing that I'm really loving that you've got like nailed down is blending between your M1 and your M2. So, our M1 is like a gear within our voice. For me, my M1 is everything like, oh. M2 is the next gear. It's like our Mickey Mouse voice. Woo! One thing you're doing really well, Vivi, is that you're blending between these two. We should aim to spend about 95% of our time in our M1. You're doing a great job of that. And then every occasional little time, you're going up there and you're reaching and you're grabbing these notes out of M2, which are just gorgeous. So awesome work on that front. I think generally your pitch is really, really well controlled. I think sometimes you're a little bit inconsistent with our weight, but I don't see that as like the thing that you should be working on the most. For me, as I listen to you, there are some different vowel and consonant combinations where I feel like you're getting a little bit darker. So this is all really about consistency for you. I have no doubt that you can get nice and bright. I can hear it in your voice, and it sounds like you've got a great control of where you want to go. But it's that rigor, it's that consistency, and I think having the tools to be able to hear that and go forwards. So there is an exercise that can really, really help with that. What I like to do, I don't have it with me at the moment, but it will be here for a future one, is to have the alphabet going from A right the way down to C, and to have this with a combination of a few different vowels. So the alphabet going down on one side, and then different target vowels at the top. And we've got a nice old matrix, A, E, I, O, U, and then all the stuff in between. What that gives us is a nice tool to be able to listen to ourselves and to be able to practice keeping nice and bright. For you, I heard things on like the really getting a little bit darker. Yeah, the y sound starting to get a little bit darker. A lot of your vowels sound really, really great. So I think for you, it's going to be going through a series of different vowels and seeing how you feel with them, with resonance. Now, to do this today, I'm going to draw out a few different vowels. Sorry if you can't see this in the back as well. I know the pen is a little bit small, but we're going to draw out a few different combos together here, Vivi, and I want to see if you can go through them with me. The main problems that I see happen on a Y, on an R, on an L. I'm going to go over here on an M and on W's often. I heard a few of these in you yourself. So oh no, it started to disappear. What we're going to do is we're going to put an E in between these different combos here. So we're going to have an E, Lee. We're going to have an E, come on, pen, Re. We're going to go through these combos together. I'll go first and I'll keep you right. First of all, though, let's find our pitch. And again, I would like to work on the same pitch that I was working with previously. Can you match me over up on this G sharp 3 here with a nice old R sound? When you're ready. Beautiful. Okay. Now let's get a really nice bright E sound on this note. Can you match me here? We're going to see if you can go from dark to bright, keeping the pitch the same. E, E. Nice and bright, but keep that softness. When you're ready, give it a go, please.
Sorry, start at bright or go to the steps?
Yeah, starting dark, so like a big old yawn, keeping the note the same. If you can match me on this one first, take a big old yawn for me. When you're ready. Beautiful. I can feel that wanting to get brighter. Yes, good, awesome. Let's get 3 of them together, starting dark and getting brighter. E, E, E. When you're ready, give it a go, getting 3 of them, please.
E, E, E.
Good, awesome. That top one's really, really nice. I want it to be just a little bit softer on the top. One final time. E, E, E. Keep that airflow going out of the mouth.
E, E, E.
Good. Okay, we're going to go for this first combo. We're going to go for an E Lee. The trick here is to make sure that we're keeping nice and bright throughout the L. Have a listen to this. This first time, I'm going to do it in a way that needs improvement. The second time, I'm going to do it right. E Lee. You can feel that dip as I go through that change. What I want instead is E Lee for it to stay nice and consistent. Here we go. Let's give it a go. After me, please. E Lee. When you're ready.
Ely.
Beautiful. Let's go for an R. Eerie.
Eary.
Beautiful. Let's go for an M. Me.
Yummy.
Do you feel this little sort of sound coming in just a little bit there? I feel there's a little bit of squeezing going on at the back of the tongue. Try and see if you can relax that for me and stay nice and bright. Me. Reducing any sort of Kermit-y sort of sound. And again.
Yummy.
Better. Yes. And finally, let's go for a W. Eewee.
Ewy.
Beautiful. Great work. Okay, let's try moving on to this rainbow passage here. Again, we're going to try and keep the pitch nice and consistent. If you can read for me, when the sunlight strikes, raindrops in the air, all on that note, nice and bright, and in your target voice. When you're ready, give it a go, please, Phoebe.
When the sunlight strikes.
And then keep on going to raindrops in the air.
Raindrops in the air.
Good. Okay, I want to get a little bit more breathiness in that voice, just a little. Can you give me a, they act as a prism? Increase that airflow, please, for me.
They act as a prism.
Good. Okay, now on the they, I felt that we can get a little bit brighter. I heard a little bit of this. The, and I feel that we can, they, open that up a little bit. We're going to take that word they, and we're going to go from dark to bright on it. Have a listen and repeat after me. They. Try that for me.
They.
Good. And I'm feeling a little bit of this increase. As you brighten up, I'm hearing a little bit of this. They. Like a little bit of squeezing a little bit too hard. There's a little bit of action at the back of the tongue, and there's a little bit too much air coming through the nose. Some very, very slight things to find us a little bit of a better tone. You're very close, though. We're going to try again, and we're going to put that really nice, bright they in the sentence. Can you give me a little they act as a prism? When you're ready, please.
They act as a prism.
Good, good. Now, do you feel quite a bit of vibration, like behind your nose or like in the nasal sort of area? Does it feel like it's kind of vibrating over in that bit or less so? Where do you feel the home of this vibration in your voice?
They act as, I guess behind the nose. A bit hard to tell.
Yeah, a little bit. It is, yeah. This may not help everybody, but sometimes being able to feel where the vibrations feel like they're congregating and bubbling up, moving that point can sometimes be a really good way to start to change the tone of the voice. Doesn't work for everybody. If you can, I would like you to try and feel these vibrations a little bit more within the mouth rather than behind the nose. If you can imagine like a glowing ball of light, moving that from behind the nose more into the mouth. And again, I want you to get nice and soft as you read this once more for me. They act as a prism. Okay.
They act as a prism.
Good, good. And form a rainbow, please, for me, Vivi.
And form a rainbow.
Really, really, really good work. Okay. So on that form, again, form a little bit on the sound. Can you give me a nice little form? Nice and bright, please.
Form.
That's better. Absolutely. And then put that back in the phrase. And form a rainbow.
And form a rainbow.
Really, really good work. And that's just up to time. Thank you so much indeed, Vivi. If I can get a huge round of applause for Vivi, please. Woo! Really, really, really nice work. Awesome.
Thank you, thank you.
So, thank you so much. So, where Vivi was, I felt as though, again, some great behaviors. I was going through a little bit of a mental checklist as I was listening and feeling like, does this pitch feel uncomfortable? No, absolutely not. Vivi had great control of her range. She was able to move from low notes to high notes, getting those laughs in, those M2s in. It didn't feel like the voice was strained or pushed, but sometimes I felt like the voice was just a little bit off in its tone, just a little bit. So pitch is often the easiest thing to get right. What I like to do is just take that variable out of the equation. Pitch acts like the skeleton of the voice. And I find that with a different kind of pitch skeleton, sometimes we need to put different skin and muscles on it. This metaphor is getting very gross. But depending on where we are, we need to adjust with our pitch, with our weight and our resonance. So we put the pitch on a level playing field on this G sharp 3. And then I started to hear in both the static pitch and in the free speech that Vivi presented with earlier, this feeling that sometimes the voice wasn't always getting the she, her from me, not always. And I say this with all the love in the world. Sometimes it was just starting to move out of our target zone and it started to sound just a little bit too thick or a little bit blocked off. Part of what you heard me talk about as well was this kind of action at the back of the tongue, this kind of Kermity sound or this sort of covering sound of the voice a little bit. What can happen when we start to manipulate our voice? We can sometimes tense the tongue up at the back. If we kind of think of our best Kermit impression or like the little Martian out of Looney Tunes, it's this sort of action that we're talking about. Intermittently, this came into the voice, and I felt that overall the voice was just a little bit too thick in points. The main thing that popped out to me, though, was consistency with these different consonants. Now, these consonants, L, M, N, W, R, and Y, those are, I think, the problem consonants. This is where we're more likely to drop the resonance of our voice. Whenever we start to formulate words, we are calling on our brain to summon up our programming of how to speech 101, and then it throws us this thing. It's like, okay, you make this sound this way. And of course, a huge part of what we're doing in vocal feminization is rewriting that coding, is remapping the brain and saying, nah, when we make an R or make a W or a Y, instead we're going to yeah rather than yeah, allow that space to get darker. The exercise that we did, I feel as though if we spent more time on that, we'd be able to isolate a tone that sounds even better than where Vivi is already. Again, loads of stuff that is in the right place. It's just those last little bits. If you feel that yourself, you have this sort of sense of inconsistency of the voice, that maybe there are some different phrases where you're like, yes, absolutely, nailed that. But some others where you're like, something just feels off. Try experimenting with resonance and try experimenting with where we place it. We've got 3 different chambers of resonance to work with. We've got everything from our larynx up to the back of the throat, which is our R1 space. We have the mouth itself, our R2, the space within the mouth, and the lips, how open and closed they are our R3. Sometimes what we can do is that we can make one space too small and another one too big. As a general rule, we want to keep the larynx and tongue really nice and high throughout. But sometimes I think one of the more common overcorrections that I see is the mouth space gets too small. So if I'm reading this, when the sunlight strikes raindrops in the air, and I have too small a mouth space, when the sunlight strikes raindrops in the air, my voice kind of got very different. It sounded too cutesy. It didn't sound like the full, more womanly sound that I normally try and strive for. And I felt like it just wasn't very me. Experimenting with that and being able to see with different combinations of consonants what's happening here and when the soul programming comes in, when it's dropping us back to a different position, that's going to be the ticket to getting a more controlled and consistent voice going forwards. As with anything with voice work, hearing yourself is going to be so important. And like, I know, I get it. Dysphoria sucks. I 100% I'm with you there. I understand. But if we were drawing and we wanted to get better at drawing, we'd have to look at our pictures, we'd have to look at our paintings, we'd have to see what's happening with the perspective, what's happening with the color, what's happening with the anatomy of the subject. And the same is true for your voice. With anything with voice, see what happens in the words. See what happens as we, in speech, go down to a specific little snapshot. Analyze that snapshot and think, what are the ingredients? Is it the consonants? Is it the vowels? Is it the mode in which I'm talking? Is it that I can't do it when I sound excited? Take the variables down, try and isolate whatever it is that causes the problem, and then work on it from there. Really, really, really good work. I'd love to know if anyone has any questions on that one there. It's a little bit more subtle than what we were doing in the first example, but I think you're great volunteers. So thank you so much again, BV. Any questions there in the crowd? If you can wave your hand at me. No? Awesome. Cool beans. And are there any questions online? Yes, please, Shay. Yes.
Twitch. Yes. So, sorry. Is the process for speaking more feminine the same as for a masked person to speak androgynously?
So, once again, can you repeat that question for me, Shay, just to double check I've got it right?
Sorry about that. Is the process for voice feminization the same as for making a masked voice more androgynous?
Yeah, is the process for feminization the same
If
as
they want to be in the middle.
making a voice, androgynous? Great question. So, androgyny is a tricky one sometimes. I tend to find that there are two types of androgyny. There is either a voice that really straddles the line between what our expectations are between mask voices and femme voices. And there are also some voices that maybe spend a lot of time femme and then occasionally dip into the mask land, giving it that androgynous kind of sound. Now, depending on what you're going for, your goals are going to be different. One thing with androgynous voices as well is I wish that society was different, but currently a lot of people there who aren't as well versed in trans spaces or trans people in general have a tendency to have the binary mindset of gender and be like, okay, she, her, or he, him. I've heard some fantastic androgynous voices that absolutely nail that straddling of the line between masc and femme, but still, when they are using their voice out there in the real world, that people will tend to just put them on one side of the fence. And I think that part of this is to do with the problem of perception and, the growth of these ideas in society as they then, androgynous identity becomes more valid in amongst society in general. That'll start to happen more. So it may be that you're doing everything absolutely right, but depending on who you're talking to, you're still getting gendered either way. The main things that I would look for if I was going to shoot for androgyny would be to keep your pitch range somewhere maybe around about 150, 160 hertz. I think you can have a really wonderful feminine inflection still. You can start to move around. I would argue that it is more difficult to get a voice that sounds truly androgynous than it is to get a voice that consistently gets a she, her. Not impossible, but it just takes some more fine tuning. To be able to do that, I think you should be able to get a voice that sounds absolutely she, her, and a voice that sounds he, him, and then be able to see what you can experiment with to get that line closer to the middle. I hope that helps. Really, really, really good question, though. Any other questions there on the chat?
Thank you for answering that question for Taylor. And
No
we have
problem,
another
Taylor.
question. It's not quite
Mhm.
related to that one. Aurora asks, I have damaged my vocals and throat to chemicals used at my
no.
work, so it's harder for me to speak with my natural voice. It could be worse for me when trying to make my voice more feminine. Any advice for helping?
Okay. I would say definitely make an appointment with your doctor and ask to see either a laryngologist or an ear, nose, and throat specialist. Laryngologist is even better. A laryngologist focuses on the larynx and its functions and different pathologies of the larynx to be able to help people with mechanical speech disorders and behavioral disorders. Speech and language pathologists may also be able to help a little bit here, but I'd prefer to go down the medical route. If you suspect that you've got any sort of physiological damage as a result of being around hazardous chemicals, best thing to do is book in with your doctor, book in with a laryngologist or an ENT, and they'll be able to put a camera up through your nose. They numb it first, don't worry. But they put this little camera up through the nose and look down, not scary at all, into the mouth and throat, and they're able to see what's happening there. I'm not a medical professional, so I cannot diagnose what might be going on here, but I think getting some eyes on the case would be fantastic. And the great news is that so many of these different voice conditions are very treatable. Get yourself a clean bill of health with your professional first of all, just to make sure that voice modification doesn't run the risk of exacerbating any pre-existing conditions. So get well soon. I hope that helps. Definitely go on and take a look at that. And for anybody else there that might be working in a hazardous environment, looking after your health is really important. I had a student a while ago who was a subway train driver, and all of the material and sparks from braking this massive train had been aerosolized and been put into the air, and over time that had caused them to have some problems with voice. So if you have been in a hazardous environment, great idea to get yourself checked out. If you've got any sort of history of vocal health issues, take a look and get yourself checked out before working on it, and that should help. But thank you so much. Any other questions on the chat there, please, Jay?
Thank you so much. That's all we have for now from the chat.
No worries. Awesome. So I think that we've got plenty of time for one more volunteer here. Let's take a look at the list. Alrighty, I've got Dreamer with 2 eyes. Is Dreamer here at all? Do we have a Dreamer in the house?
Hello.
Yes, hello. Welcome on up to the stage. I can get a big old round of applause, please. Woo!
Oh, fuck yeah.
Heck yeah. Hi, welcome, welcome, welcome. You're sounding fantastic right off the bat. So can you tell me again, I'll start the timer, a little bit about yourself and a little bit of your journey with voice so far.
Cool. So I came out, I cracked my egg about 3 months ago, and I've been vocal training for 1 month.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic.
I started
Great. How have you found it?
somewhere like down here, so I started like down here. And
Yeah.
I've had 2 vocal classes, with some like private vocal classes with someone called Savvy. I think my main
Oh,
my
I know
main
Savvy.
issues-
Savvy's lovely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, she
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
She's
Tell
so
her I said
nice.
hi.
I will. Yeah. I think my main issue is like when I'm using fem voice, when I go too high, I sort of get a bit shaky.
Yeah, so shakiness at higher pitches, absolutely. Anything else that you found to be a bit of a problem so far?
So I'm actually from the UK, and I'm kind of worried that when I'm speaking in fem voice, I'm using an American accent, and it's not going to transfer well to my British accent.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I've definitely fallen into that tip myself, as you can probably tell. So I'm actually from up in Newcastle, and my accent's completely lost at the minute. So yeah, there's a reason for that. American accents are one of the brightest ones that we have in English. They are super, super, super bright passively. So leaning into a bit of an American twang sometimes can really actually help us to get our resonance to where we want it to be. I would say don't be afraid of leaning into that a little bit, but then listening to some examples of people from your own local area is going to really help you to be able to get back to where you are. Whereabouts are you from in the UK, if you don't mind me asking?
Manchester.
Manchester, cool. Yep, absolutely. So have a little listen to, not the strongest of accents, but definitely still there. Have a listen to friends, family, and mimic them. I think is going to be one of the best ways to get that accent back. So what I hear again today is some great things. When you came up on the stage here, I was like, oh my God, has Dreamer already finished voice coaching? But then as you started to talk, we started to fall just a little bit out of that perfect range. Again, the things that we talked about in the first volunteer session with Anna, the same things apply for you. So getting that time to be longer and longer, resetting, listening back to yourself and getting more consistent. With the core problem of shakiness coming into different pitches here, SOVTEs are going to be your best friend. And I'm sure that, I think Savvy calls them softies or softies.
Yeah, she does.
Have you went over those? Yeah, absolutely.
A little
cool.
bit briefly.
Alrighty, they're going to be your best friend. So SOVTEs, they stand for semi-occluded vocal tract exercises, and they're made by this really smart dude called Ingo Tietze. And what he found was that by changing the level of coverage over the mouth, the occlusion of the vocal tract, we can change the pressure within the vocal tract. So if we do things like, I don't know, if I grab a straw and some water here and I start to hum a note through it, there's a lot of resistance onto my voice. There are a bunch of different sounds out there for SOVTEs. We've got, and oh, you're already equipped. Great. Perfect. So those SOVTEs are going to be great. There's two different ways that I really like to use them. First of all, I like to go for long 10-second sustained notes. And we should be aiming anywhere between a C3 going up to around about a B3, a C4. So let's try this together. I'm going to keep an eye on my timer here so that I can tell you when to stop. I don't want you going forever with these. But if you can grab your straw and water for me, make sure it doesn't get on your headset. Place the straw about middle of the way through the water. And we're going to try on this note first of all, and I want to see if you can get this for a nice 10 seconds here. It's going to sound like this. Try that for me, please, first of all. Okay, I'm going to pause you there. Thank you so much. I heard a few little things that could tell me that you could do this exercise a little better. First of all, I heard a little bit of a passage of air coming through. And I noticed that your sound, it was a little bit stop and start. It was like a So try, first of all, to make sure that you're getting a full closure of your lips around the straw. And make sure that you're channeling the air not out of the nose, but all through the mouth. Best way to do this is to start for a second before you start to phonate and vocalize to get the air moving. So I get my air moving first, making sure that there's no leakage coming out of my nose or around the straw. Then give that another go for me. When you're ready, the note again, it's right up here. Right there. Fantastic, really well done. I was muted there. So good. So what I heard again there was a little bit of intermittency. We could feel how that was kind of stop and start as we're getting into that exercise. The wonderful thing about these exercises is we experience problems in the exercise, we're going to experience them in the voice more generally. So I would bring this back to the idea of the power. What's going on to really start to make this machine happen? I have a feeling that you're not quite taking in a very big breath when you start off this exercise here. When you start this exercise, and a general exercise for you that might be helpful is meditative breathing. So starting off breathing for maybe 4 seconds, holding it for an X amount and exhaling. There are tons of meditative breathing exercises online. They're all going to be really helpful. Focus on that diaphragm. Focus on moving the belly out as you breathe in and feeling that coming back in. We breathe this way rather than like pulling air vertically. It's going to be a sideways feeling. When you've got a big old lung full of air, try that exercise again and see if you can get the sound to be more stable. Once again, we're looking for that balance of how together the vocal folds are and the breath. And once again, the note is right about here. Perfect, Dreamer. Thank you so much. Did you feel again how at the start we had this noise coming through the straw, but it wasn't bubbling? We had the without the bubbles. That to me tells me that there's still a lot of air leaking out of the nose. So going forwards, try and see if you can get this exercise to sound more consistent, to get a little bit louder as well. I want you to raise that vocal weight up a little bit and to make sure that we're breathing with our diaphragm at the start there. There are some other ways that you can use
water
these.
as well.
Yes, it does. There are some other things that we can do too. So I like to use these for 10-second long intervals. We can work our way up to 20 seconds or even 30 seconds. But again, Don't do anything silly. Make sure that you aren't feeling lightheaded, and this goes for everyone in the crowd here as well who might want to take this advice. Go at your own pace. But for me, I'm able to go for 30 seconds with this, and it's not because my lungs are amazing. Like, I was an asthmatic kid. I smoked for years. I'm not very fit. Nothing with my lungs. It's just all about how I use that air. And I think getting in tune with that is going to be what really helps you out going forwards. Some other ways that we can use these different SOVTEs outside of prolonged periods is going through different ranges. I like to use a fifth. So we're going to go between two different notes here. Have a listen and see if you can match me. It's going to sound like this. Now, I use a lip trill instead of my straw and water, but I would like you to give this a go with the straw and water, please, when you're ready. Beautiful. Now, I want you to do that again, but a little bit louder. When you're ready, please. Beautiful. Same thing again with these notes, please. Okay, when you're ready. Really, really close. There was a little bit of a stop in the middle. Can you try that once more for me? Trying to steadily glide on up. Keep the air rate going. Focus on what the air is doing, how it's moving through your body. It's going to be one long exhale. And again, the notes. All right, here. Give it another go, please, Dreamer. Excellent. And that just about brings us up to time. Thank you so much indeed. If you can take a seat and I can get a big old round of applause, please. Woo! Great work. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, really, really, really awesome.
Nice job.
Great work.
Great.
Good job.
Great.
Great.
So, what we found there was, again, when Dreamer presented up onto the stage here, really, really great qualities. I thought that maybe they were further along than they were. They've been able to get a really nice, soft and feminine tone at the start, but it kind of worked its way down as we got really into talking a little bit more. As we talked a little bit about how this breathlessness or this difficulty around getting pitches that are higher up, stronger, was causing a problem. We found that if you've got the problem in the exercise, it's going to present itself in speech. For those of you that are speaking with your fem voice and you're finding that, oh my God, if I'm talking for like an hour, it's just like, it's impossible. This is going to be for you. So SOVTEs, we recommend that you use these anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes a day, twice a day. And this is going to be over the period of weeks that this helps. I've had students who have talked at a very, very low pitch for all of their lives, sometimes decades, and who haven't been able to hit those notes that we've reached today at all. By using these SOVTEs, we were able to steadily find ways in coordination and relearn how to use these vocal folds to the fullest of their potential. So I've had people that could maybe only ever make a sound up to around about an F3, get all the way up to a B3, which is a huge, huge, huge increase. Use them sparingly throughout the day, 5 to 10 minutes, twice a day. And there are lots of different sounds that we can use. I'm pretty sure there's a sticky of this over on the Discord server. But again, just to go through with them, there's an as in mother, as in November, as in victory, as in Zulu. We've also got the straw in the water with the bubbles and lip trills. It's where we make kind of a noise like a horse. And then we start to move the voice through it. They're one of my favorites. By continuing to use these exercises daily, we're going to be able to lengthen the amount of time that you can use that pitch, both in a continued stretch and throughout the rest of the day. It's all about finding balance. Again, there is nothing special about my anatomy or about me. My lung capacity is not great for reasons mentioned before. And yet I'm able to sustain this voice all day through 5 or 6 hours of teaching. It's all about getting more bang for your buck and going back to what we said at the very start with regards to safety. A no pain, no gain does not apply. It's a steady investigation and coordination with ourself, our breath, our vocal folds, and everything in between to be able to maintain a sound that is really, really solid and great for us going forwards. So that just about brings us up to time, but what I would love to do is to have a little bit of a Q&A with everybody with some general questions here. Doesn't have to be about the stuff that we've talked about today. I'm going to start over on the right and work my way over to the left. So if you have any questions over here, please, to begin. You can wave your hand at me. Nope, we seem to be all right. And coming up to over here, yes, Caleb. Hi, how can I help?
Hi. Are these gonna be on YouTube or something?
Yes,
These
absolutely.
videos?
These lessons are recorded and they're going to be on our video on demand service over on our YouTube channel, but all the names will be blurred out as well. Okay.
Okay.
Great question. Any other questions coming around into the middle?
Correction,
No,
names
any
are
questions
completely
over here?
removed or blurred out.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Ayaku, hi. How can I help?
I have an interesting question. I'm like the tale of two voices. Like this is my normal baseline. But if
Uh-huh.
I like use like an O and I go hello and drum. Oh, let me move. If I use like a more, I don't know, everybody calls it like a dummy mommy voice. It alters the way the
Uh-huh.
air flows, and I have like two separate voices. So, hi,
Mm.
how are you doing? Like, hey.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Like, how do I
Sorry, what
blend
was...
between the
Yeah.
two?
How do you blend between the two? Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
So, two different voices. How do I blend between the two? And I really think that this is all about experimentation. So, if we have like a lower, a lower, huskier sort of voice, and we want to blend it up with something that's a little bit higher and a little bit less breathy, experimentation is key. I think that having one word, hello, can be a great one, and just going between those different aesthetics until you find what really feels right for you would be great. Recording and listening back is key. So going for something like a hello, 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 hello. Try on different hats. Try and move around with it until you find something that really feels like you've got the best of both worlds. With anything, it's just a case of brute force over the brain with this stuff. It's here. It's just repetition, repetition, repetition. Once you find what you like, go back to it. Make a mantra phrase where you can just go back to that and be like, yes, I'm in the middle of the road between my two voices that I really love the sound and feel of. I really liked how before you talked about that feeling of the breath and those sensations, holding on to that feedback within our body, the vibrations where we feel the air moving. All these different things are going to really help us to be able to lock that behavior in and know, like, when we're talking, I'm right where I need to be. So try on some different hats, experiment, record, make a mantra phrase, and you should be able to go back to that middle of the road voice more easily. Thank you so much for your question. Any questions online at all, Shay, please?
Yes, we have a question from
Awesome.
the Twitch. I learned from a friend about a trick to get into the more feminine breathing called big dog, small dog. And
Yes,
as I'm
absolutely.
M2F, I would do small dog with faster breathing, and I was curious if that's not something I should do because I do get a bit of pain after a bit when I do that. And
Okay.
that
So the
question
question
is
there is,
from
yeah,
Zodiac Knight.
perfect. Thank you so much indeed. So the question there again, using the big dog, small dog to feminize the voice, but should I go quickly? And I also find that after I've used it, I have some pain. So this might be because you're going quickly. The big dog, small dog exercise, like so many of our other exercises within the trans voice community, has some applications that are absolutely superb and some different interpretations by the community that means well, but may not have the biggest scope of how this all works, that have caused some problems. A big exercise historically that was like this was the swallow and hold technique. About 4 or 5 years ago, the swallow and hold technique was everywhere. Much to the dismay of myself and some others, because when we start the swallow and hold, we swallow, we hold these muscles in, and it's just asking to create tension. It's asking for us to use different muscle groups to tighten up and to hold everything in, which is not what we want to do. So with the big dog, small dog, this has also happened here. I've heard some people do this exercise really quick and to take the name really literally, to go from like a like really quick, like a panting dog. And although there is a little bit of the aesthetic of a big dog and a small dog in the exercise, we don't want to mimic the panting breathing patterns. What we want to do in this exercise is go very slowly and deliberately. We're going to pick a vowel. It can be A, E, I, O, U, or it can be any of its lowercase cousins, A, E, I, O. We take that sound and we start with a big space, very gently whispering and moving up and up and up. So if it's an E, for example, rather than, because that last one, you can hear it's much more intense. When we whisper, we run the risk of drying out our vocal folds. And when we whisper really hard, when we put a lot of force into it, as if we were panting, even more so. When we dry out our vocal folds and they're rubbing together all the time, they get irritated and they get inflamed, and it might be the source of the discomfort that, or the pain that this person was talking about. The other source of potential pain might be from doing what I said with the swallow and hold and tightening up too much. We don't want to tighten up. All the muscles in here should be like jelly. Nothing should be like really tight. So when doing this exercise, go slow, drink plenty of water, pick a vowel, go slowly up. Make sure that your whisper is literally whisper quiet, really, really quiet, barely audible. Also make sure that your whisper is clean. And what do I mean by that? I don't want a whisper that's like, excuse me, for obvious reasons. If you hear a lot of grit and noise in the whisper, it means that we're activating something called our false vocal folds, which is not what we want to do. It's material in our voice that is responsible for like an old man voice, like a, hey, you kids, or like an effortful voice, like a, ha. That's squeezing. We want less of that. So make sure that the whisper is nice and pure and quiet. Go gentle. I would also say give yourself a break of at least a week or 2 weeks before returning to this if you've got any pain. And if that pain returns, you know what to do. Have an appointment with a professional, either like myself or with a doctor, to be able to see what's going on, because there shouldn't be any sort of pain. It's a big sign that, hey, something's going wrong. Thank you so much indeed, Shay. Any other questions on the interwebs?
It's like that's all we have for now. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Any questions over here on the left side? Oh, I guess it's my left rather than your left. Hi, Lizzie, at the back. I'll come right back to you, my burial as well. Hi, Lizzie. How can I help?
Hi. So,
Oh, sorry.
go ahead. Go first.
No. What were you saying, Lizzie? Sorry.
So I've noticed when I'm talking for a longer period of time, my voice tends to drop more lower. Is there a way to,
Yes.
like, how do you say it? To realize that the voice is like dropping lower? Because it usually happens in like longer conversations, and I don't really realize it myself until someone else points it out. But it's like way to keep checking yourself up, like you keeping your voice like up higher. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great. So the question there, thank you so much, is noticing that my voice is just going lower and lower and lower the longer I talk. How can I build that awareness of where I want to be? So I would say spending some time on desktop is going to be fantastic. Spend some time on desktop. If you've got 2 monitors, even better. And on one monitor, have yourself a pitch tracker on there and see visually what is happening. You can get some pitch trackers. There's like AM Pitch that's free online. There is Fritcher that needs a bit of configuring. There's Informant. There are loads of programs out there. Or indeed, what I recommend is the Voice Tools app on your phone. As long as you've got a plug-in microphone, can be fantastic for tracking your voice and where it goes. Excuse me. So visually track it, see what happens, and whenever you notice it dripping down a little bit too low, pause and give yourself a mid-conversational reset. Now, mid-conversational resets are something that we've talked about a fair bit over at the Academy here, and they are these filler words that we don't have to worry about. Things like, like, so, all these different filler words that aren't really saying anything. And when you feel like you might be dropping a little bit, maybe in the corner of your eye, you're noticing, oh my God, I'm getting back into this low zone here. And then coming off of that and going back into the target voice is going to be really good. Another thing to do as well is to assess yourself and to see where you are in the stages of learning voice feminization. Are we somewhere where we're learning these skills and trying to get control? Are we somewhere where we are trying to establish that blueprint, or are we in that final stage of just making sure that we stay there? Experiment. Try and see if you can read a whole passage like this, keeping the pitch whoosh, nice and the same. Then try and see, okay, reading, how long is it until you have that drop off of pitch? Is it that it happens after a sentence? Does it happen after two? Does it happen after a paragraph? And see if you can make that period longer and longer. Journaling and writing down your successes with this stuff also helps so much to be able to be like, yes, I am making progress. Last week I could go 2 sentences before it drops. Today I can go a whole paragraph. So journaling that as well can help. See what you can do, see how that all feels, see where it is that those drop-offs are coming. Are they at the end of phrases? Does it have to be something that you have to look at with the sentence structure itself? Depends where it's happening, but awareness is key. Watch what's happening there, go back to it often, and that should help. But thank you so much for your question. Mabariel, hi, you had a question as well up front.
I did, and sorry, my voice is going to be a little bit gravelly because I've been following along. But on
you
the last
sound great.
exercise with a dream, when you're going from one note and sliding up and down, during COVID,
Yes.
I wound up catching COVID and losing my voice.
Oh, no.
And during
Yeah.
that time, all my range never came back. And I noticed when I was trying that my voice dips out at a certain point, like I can't, no matter if I force it, if I'm soft, there's a certain range there that I used to have that I no longer do anymore. Certain exercises to like try and wiggle my way back to there.
Great. Okay. So the question there, after COVID, I've noticed that a big chunk of my range is no longer accessible. Okay. So I would say that it's a good idea for you to get yourself, again, checked out with a doctor just to make sure that everything's okay. With COVID, as I'm sure you know, there's a lot of coughing going on. And coughing, the mechanics by which coughing works is it involves the vocal folds. It involves these things coming together, building up pressure, and then coming apart pretty violently. When we have a lot of coughing, we run the risk of having inflammation, and then there is the possibility that these sorts of things might occur, where you can't quite get to where you used to be able to. I would say that this constitutes a medical concern, and I, again, don't mean to worry at all. It's very treatable 9 times out of 10, but it's always a good idea to get yourself looked at just to make sure that there isn't anything physically going on here that's preventing you to do what you already were able to do. It's a quick procedure. I'd really recommend that for yourself just to make sure that everything's all okay. Outside of that, I would say take it slow and easy with these SOVTEs. Try and see if you can glide up into that range. Make sure that you're focusing on that breath support there as well. But if you find that you're not making headway progress and it feels like there's a firm wall preventing you, get yourself scoped out, make sure that everything's all okay, and then start again, I would say. But thank you so much for your question. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Awesome. Cat person 96. Hello. I'm coming right back to you, Lucy. Sorry. Hi.
Okay. So you were
What's up?
talking about the mid conversation interrupters, like the uhs. For work, since I do mostly calls, I have been told to avoid like doing the and uhs since that kind of drops like
Perceived
people's confidence
professionalism
in
and
you.
all that stuff. Yeah, got you.
Yeah. So is there a way of like doing a mid conversation restart without doing the
Yeah, for sure. First of all, I relate. I used to be in a call center for like 3 years, so I know the feel. Are you on camera for these different calls? Or are you off cam? And do you have your own machine while you're doing these?
it's a it's my own machine. It's no cameras, but it's I work in IT, so I do a lot of remote like sessions with customers. So
Yeah. Absolutely. So a good thing that you could do there is you've got some things working on your side. You're not on camera and doing IT work. There's going to be plenty of moments where you can signpost to a client and be like, yeah, I'm just looking into these settings. I'm going to be quiet for a moment or two while I do so. Is that all okay? Great. I would say that it's a good idea for you to get yourself a digital mixing software or a microphone with a hardwired button to be able to mute and unmute yourself. I think that those mid-conversation... Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I already have a mic that does that, so.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, I would say if ever you're feeling that your confidence is dropping, signpost, hey, I'm just going to be a moment while I do this. Is that all okay? Mute. Hello. 1, 2, 3. Then back on the call. Okay, yes, sir, ma'am. This is all sorted out. Blah, 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 whatever you need to do. Muting is going to be your friend.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much. Outside of that, if ever you find yourselves all in a situation where you cannot use a mid-conversational reset, sometimes the breath is a nice thing to go back to. As we talked about earlier, this idea of keeping the breath sounding fem, sometimes a little sigh can be something that can really help you out to make sure that your resonance is where you want it to be. When we go to make a pitch, in our minds, we start to get ready to make the pitch and we prepare. While we do that mental preparation for the pitch that we're going to make, our vocal folds actually physically adjust and they get ready to make that pitch. So sometimes if you find that you're in a conversation where you can't make any of these sorts of noises to reset yourself, focus on that feeling. What does it feel like? It's very subtle. What does it feel like inside of my neck when I'm about to make this pitch and absolutely nail it? And try and see if you can capture that same feeling and sensation before you go into speech going forward. So thank you so much. Great question. Hi, Lucy. What was your question?
I have an interesting one that I heard before from someone else off in Discord. It's like, so whenever we are talking, we have our normal speech voice, right? But whenever we engage into some kind of emotions like anger or like happiness, like when we're getting all giggly and stuff, I experience like the pitch goes all the way up and sometimes the resonance goes higher. Is it that correct? Is that exactly what happens?
Yeah, sure. So if it's correct or not depends all on you and if you like the sound. The great thing in voice is that there is nothing that is strictly one way correct. We can have all sorts of fantastic outcomes and where you want the voice to be. So if you find that when you're getting excited or emotionally engaged with the conversation that it's getting quite high, if you like the sound, perfect. If you don't like the sound, okay, let's try and check in with ourselves and bring it down a little bit. Things with emotions and sounding angry and things, we can absolutely do this in our target voices. So if someone was to irritate me, for example, if I'm like, yeah, no, absolutely not, that's not acceptable, no way, I thicken up. I still keep my pitch about the same place. I increase the weight, but it still sounds pretty good. I've practiced that. Same thing for yourself. Practice those different things. And in practicing that, this is where things like reading a play can be really, really, really helpful because they present a gambit of human emotion that you can start to experiment your voice with. So try that out. Try reading in some different emotions, seeing how it feels. There's no one right way to do it. If it feels right and it sounds good, awesome. If there's something you don't like, try and see if you can bring it closer to your target voice and how that feels. But great question. Thank you so much. Any further questions here on the left? Perfect. Hi, Brass Flamingo. Hello.
Hello. So for me, occasionally when I'm trying to close my throat to get the correct resonance, I experience like the urge to vomit.
Okay.
I'm just curious whether that's a common issue, whether that's something unique to me, or if that's something I'm doing something completely wrong.
Okay. So the question again there is, when I'm doing these resonance exercises, I experience a gag reflex and an urge to vomit. Is that normal? I've encountered it before. I've had 1 or 2 students that when we've been in a session that's happened with. And what I've found is that they're actually raising the back of their tongue too high and too back. And it was starting to irritate and meet against the uvula, the little dangly cartoon punching bag that we see at the back of the mouth. when that happened, that started to trigger a gag reflex. So I would say bring your resonance down a little bit. That shouldn't be occurring. It's a tricky one. I would say that try to see on something like a whisper siren. I think this is a more gradual exercise is going to be more helpful for figuring out when this point is engaging. So can I get to here without that coming in? And then if it starts to happen there is your answer. Try and go below that line. I'm not sure, but I imagine as well, what my experiences previously is that when someone's had this gag reflex for these different resonance exercises, there was a moment of materials meeting in the vocal tract. There's this sort of sound as something pushed against something else. We want to have a clear and unobstructed channel of air coming right the way from the bottom of our lungs, leaving our lips. And if at any point you feel there's like a closure where two materials are meeting, that needs to be adjusted. So I would say try and see if you can not put the tongue as far back. Try and see if you can find out with a gradual exercise where it feels comfy, and then maybe practice whispering on that. Try practicing getting a nice femme whisper without feeling sick. Can I get used to it then? Then I'd say go into speech. Whenever we find a problem like this, it's a good idea not to focus on putting all these things together. I like to call it plate spinning, where we're thinking about pitch, resonance, oh my God, what am I going to say next? All of this stuff. Instead, focus on the one thing that you're trying to do. Try and give it a more speech-like quality. See what happens. And I would say try and just go a little bit less intense than where you're going. It may be that you've just got a hypersensitive gag reflex. I've had a student that was exactly what was going on, where for other people, there may not actually be a contact point, but it's just triggering that reflex. Try and see as far as you can go without it. See where you can get. And then if you need to continue on with that session, I would say continue on with that skill building, book in a session with a voice coach, and they'll be able to help you out further. Thank you so much. Great question. Any other questions around about here? Hello, Cherry on top. Hi.
Hi, it's not really a question, but it's kind of something that I've been wanting to say for a while. I just want to thank you for what you do.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks, Snowy. Snowy sponsored today's lesson.
These classes have probably been one of the best things I've attended. I will say that.
Oh, thank you so much. Honestly, that means the world to me. When I started out with this, when I started going into Femvoice, it wasn't like a big career goal. It was because I was in the community, I was working on my voice, and I just saw like how many of us have the wrong idea about these different concepts, and that like voice training was so inaccessible. It's tricky. So it's been a huge pleasure of mine to be able to continue to work in this field and to give back to the community. I wouldn't be anywhere without all of you lovely people across the world, and it's just amazing to be able to give back in that regard as well. So I want to extend that thanks and pass it on to Tizzy, to Snowy, to all the staff here at the VRC that make everything possible. Yeah, thank you all so much. I stand on the shoulders of giants, so thank you so much indeed for that, Jerry. I really appreciate
No problem.
it. Great. Any other questions? Thank you. So lovely. Lena, hi. Oh, yes. Dreamer, hello.
I was just wondering, could you tell us the software that tracks pitch on PC again?
Yeah, sure. So what I personally use is something called Friture. That's Friture, and it's available at friture.org. I must say that this is third-party software that is open source. So we here at the Academy and myself personally can't accept any liability for any loss of damages or loss of data or damages incurred as using or installing the product. Please do so at your own risk. T's and C's aside. I use Friture. It's a little bit funny to configure, so I'll put a little bit of a guide up there on the voice chat channel sometime. We'll get that pinned. It's my favorite tool. It's really, really handy, but thanks so much indeed. Any other questions around about here, please? Joey, Jack, hi. Hello.
Hi, do you have any tips on how to get rid of mucus or phlegm in your throat?
Yeah, any tips for getting rid of mucus and phlegm? avoid clearing your throat. I know that's counterintuitive, but avoid throat clearing. When we throat clear, we make quite a violent motion of our vocal folds, and that can irritate them. If we've got a bunch of mucus and then we're throat clearing to clear that mucus, the vocal folds getting irritated, creating more mucus, and we get into a bit of a mucus cycle. So if you can, try and just swallow that mucus, as gross as it is, rather than clearing your throat excessively or coughing. No one should be clearing the throat more than once a minute at all, you know. I've met some people that clear their throats multiple times a minute while practicing their voice. Do not do that, okay? Try and keep your throat clearings to a minimum. Outside of that, there may be some dietary things that are going on. Dairy is a big culprit. So things like milk and yogurt, ice cream, these can coat our throats with a bit of a film, a microbiotic film of phlegm and bacteria and all sorts of nasty stuff. Try and see if you can cut out dairy if you can. It may be allergy related as well. Try and see if you have any allergies. If you are experiencing allergies, it's going to get way worse. Outside of that, if you still feel that mucus is a really big problem, mucus is something that is, again, highly preventable and very treatable. A good idea might be to make an appointment with your doctor and be like, hey, I'm just like drowning in mucus over here. Can you help? And they might be able to help you out further. Thank you so much. Any final questions around about here as well? Nope. Anyone here? Great. Okie doke. Well, with that, everybody, we went quite a bit over time, but I really loved everyone's questions, so thank you all so much. I want to thank you all for coming and attending on this Sunday. It's really, really great to have you all here. I hope everyone's found something of benefit. And again, I'd like to give one big round of applause to all of our volunteers that we've had today. You all rocked it. It's a great job coming on up on stage. Amazing. Thank you all so much. All right. Well, again, you can find me over on transvoice.com or in the Academy server. You can also find me there. We'll be running some more lectures later on in the year, but thank you all so much. I've been Rachel. You've been great. Thank you again. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All the best, everyone. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Take care.